Hello and welcome to My Career in Data, a podcast where we discuss with industry leaders and experts how they have built their careers. I'm your host, Shannon Kemp, and today we're talking to Christopher Bergh from Datakitchen.
With a robust catalog of courses offered on demand and industry-leading live online sessions throughout the year, the DATAVERSITY Training Center is your launchpad for career success. Browse the complete catalog at training.dataversity.net and use code DVTalks for 20% off your purchase.
Hello and welcome. My name is Shannon Kemp, and I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Dataversity, and this is My Career in Data, a Dataversity Talks podcast dedicated to learning from those who have careers in data management, to understand how they got there, and to be talking with people who help make those careers a little bit easier. To keep up to date in the latest in data management education, go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Today, we are joined by Chris Bergh, the CEO and head chef at Datakitchen. And normally this is where a podcast host would read a short bio of the guest. But in this podcast, your bio is what we're here to talk about. Chris, hello and welcome.
Hi, Shannon. How are you today? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. So excited you can be here. I had the pleasure of introducing you at a recent Dataversity demo day. And as I was reading your bio, I'm like, oh my gosh, you've done some really cool things. I can't wait to dive into it and hear about how you got in.
Winding road, yeah.
So, well, let's start though where you are now and what you're currently doing. So you're the CEO and head chef. I love that title at Datakitchen. So tell me, what type of business is Datakitchen?
So we're a software company. We do some data work on the side, but I guess we've really been devoted to solving a problem in data that's not with data. It's a problem in how the teams work with data. And so we've called that idea data ops, and it came really from my career and my co-founder's career. And so we've been, I guess the short speech is that I think data and analytic people are frustrated. I don't think they're being very successful. I think there's a lot of waste and inefficiency. And I don't think it's solved by buying a new ETL tool or a faster database. I think, like a lot of cases, it's actually solved by how the people work with each other and how the people work with the system as a whole. That it's taking a series of ideas that were started up in manufacturing with Toyota and went through software development with Agile, and we sort of took those ideas and have nested them in the data and analytics world. And we've got some software to help, but we also have written 2 books and have a training program and manifestos. We have a little content farm that talks about these ideas.
Oh, very cool. So as the Datakitchen CEO and head chef, what does your typical week look like? What are you doing for the company?
So I guess to me, I think leadership is a service role, right? And so I try to do what other people don't, and I try to set it up so my team is successful, my customers are successful, and we're making the right, big picture calls. But I also am an engineer, right? So some of the time I miss coding, so I find ways to code a few hours a week if I can. That's always like a pleasure if I can actually do technical work, because I miss that. But I find my job is really just talking. It's communicating. And so that has been a big change, because I spent sort of the first part of my career as a software engineer, sort of writing code for a laboratory at MIT, at NASA, at some startup companies at Microsoft. And then I got into management in the data field relatively late, like 18 years ago, and found that was just very challenging. And I've been kind of working on solving that challenge ever since in various different ways. So it's a lot of communication and leadership, which is a very different set of skills than the sort of heads down. I can make the machine do what I want, and I'm really happy to spend 8 hours doing it. And it's just a very different set of skills. And that's something I had to learn in my career.
You've mentioned some buzzwords already, so let's get into how you got to where you are, and then I have lots of questions uh, to follow up with. So, so tell me, Chris. So, when is this? Was this the dream? So, say you're 6 years old. Was this the dream? Like, I want to
No, I
be
was going to be an
head chef.
astronaut. I was going to be an
Oh, nice.
astronaut and
Yeah,
like go to
yeah.
space. That was the dream, right? And then it transitioned for a while. And in middle school and high school, I wanted to be a war photographer and be one of those cool
Oh,
guys running around. Um, and then sort of, I grew up as a working class kid in Wisconsin, right? So I worked my way through college. And then, I bounced around. I did a lot of math and science things. I sort of took a lot of liberal arts classes. And then I just wanted to get out of Wisconsin. And I wanted to fly in a plane. It was very important for me. I hadn't flown in a plane or really left Wisconsin very much. So I went to the Peace Corps. And I was a
oh,
teacher for 2.5 years in a rural school in Botswana. And so I taught math. And that was just a great experience for me. If anything can help your communication skills, it's teaching. It's teaching middle school and high school kids. So I learned quite a
yeah.
bit there. And I came back and then I went to graduate school and I sort of fell in love with, I realized that I was sort of tired of being poor. I'd spent almost 7, 8 years kind of living off of my own, kind of being financially on my own. And then second is I just really got interested in software and computers and actually AI. And this was the very late 80s. So I went to Columbia for graduate school, and then I was got a job for 5 years at this project from a laboratory at MIT and NASA to automate air traffic control, to actually learn how to sequence and space aircraft faster. And it turns out that I just read an article in the New York Times that we need that more than ever because a lot of air traffic controllers are retiring and they've had an increase in accidents because they're working overtime. So automation can help. And I learned a lot of lessons about working on teams. And then, the internet revolution happened. I thought I'd get rich and retire in 2 years in 96. That didn't happen. So I've been, on this career of being technical and then sort of talking and managing and leading. That's sort of been my career cycles between individual contributor and team lead and working my way around that.
Tell me, so you decided, you go to the Peace Corps, which is very cool, great experience teaching math. So how did you come back and transition into getting interested in was it just you just decided you're going to pick any degree in for your master's?
Well, I
Um,
thought I was going to get a master's degree and then go back and teach again. Like I thought I'm getting a master's in
mhm.
math. I'll go teach again. I like teaching. And then I got to New York and I really had no money. And it was very tough to be in New York and poor. And so I
Yeah.
just I'd work my way through college and it's 7 or 8 years of really not having a lot of money. And I was teaching's great, but then I sort of got frustrated with teaching and I just really got into but for some, I have a son now and my son turns out the same way. I had a lot of confidence that wasn't backed up with any experience. I just thought I'd be really good at it. And I have no experience. Honestly, I was I'm going to be really good at computers, even though I kind of hadn't done that much before then. And, it turned out I was right. And I guess, and I don't know if that's some genetic thing or some male thing, but I have a 23-year-old son who has a lot of confidence with very little actual experience to back it up. Maybe it's
Uh,
testosterone. I don't know what it is, but
Oh, I love it. So, okay, and you got into AI. Was that before you got to the MIT project or during
yeah, it was
school?
sort of this is before. Yeah, I took a lot of sort of machine learning and neural networks courses in graduate school,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then there wasn't at that time AI was very unfashionable. It was in
Mhm.
the AI winter, and what's interesting from my perspective about AI now is that I really was trying to, with networked computers and workstations and algorithms, trying to get a computer to do what an air traffic controller does. Right? It's kind of like self-driving air traffic automation. Right? It's the same sort of
Yeah.
problem. And what we learned is that you can solve it. It's sort of 90, 85, 90% of the time. But every time you want to go up to the other next percent, it gets almost asymptotically harder. It's like really hard to go from 90% accurate to 91 to 92, 93.
Sure.
It gets
Yeah.
just super hard because the context of the problem's big. It becomes social, it becomes meaningful, it becomes things that are unseen before. And so we went from like, we're going to displace controllers to we're just going to provide them. Here's the runway you should go to, and here's the plane you should follow. And just limiting the world and giving them a little advice based on what the computer could get the big picture, and giving them control and thinking of it more as an advisor than a dictator. That became a very important touchstone for me. And I see it now also in a lot of the talk in AI. It's really easy to get a 80, 90% result, but to actually get it right. Like ChatGPT, self-driving cars, it's like amazing, but then you're like, it's wrong. And like, it's wrong at various times. And so it's hard to get it, that sort of gap to making things that are actually competent as opposed to skilled it's really tough in AI. And so in some ways I got frustrated with that and I left. And so now that the AI is back, it sort of feels like it's the girlfriend I had in college who I dumped. And now has become back as a major movie star. I'm like, oh, missed that one.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, because accuracy, right? Data quality is so important, right? Because there's major consequences if it's not there in something like that.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, I think, the idea of sort of magic, and people like the idea of magic and AI, and it can tell you, and maybe AI is going to magically do. And a lot of vendors do push magic beans, which I think is unfortunate. But I think, like a lot of things, you can help people be more efficient in their job. Algorithms and AI in general can help people doing governance faster, we have technology that you could broadly class as algorithms and AI to help people write automated data quality tests, right? There's a lot of things that you can use, but it's an advisor, not a dictator. It's always going to go wrong at some point, and you have to monitor it and control it. And I think that's the theme I learned in sort of 92, and here it is 2023, and it's the same stuff. And I think it's going to be that way for a while. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just more automation.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so where did you go to from there?
So like I said, I joined a couple of internet startups because it was some of which were terrible and some of which were interesting. Then I decided more that I wanted to be a manager. And so my mind worked faster than my fingers. And I was like, and that took me, I think, like a lot of people in a technical role, I struggled with managing my first small team. And I went from kind of individual contributor to tech lead it took me a good 8-9 years to get that right out of my head. Because I was sort of the person, I wanted to do two things. I wanted to be the person who wrote all the cool stuff and did all the cool work and tell people what to do. And I got a job where I was a director of engineering and managing a team, and I stopped doing technical work. And I spent about a decade, honestly, just learning to be a good people manager. And that's a very, some people annoyingly are like absolutely great at it. And like, they're just good at it. And it's like really annoying. They aren't trained. They're just like so good at it. And like, it's just really drives me nuts. Like, I'm married to one and she's really good at it, but she's a teacher. She doesn't want it. I'm like, you have leadership skills coming out of your sleeve. And I have to struggle to learn all these things. It's really annoying for that. But like, it can be learned. And that's, I think, a problem with a lot of people in data, or people who have these odd set of 2% skills where they can stare at a computer screen all the time and really get into it. It's very difficult then to take that knowledge and transfer it into leading teams or leading functions and organizations. It's a really different mindset. And it's like going from it's like going from A to B or A to Z. It's so different that a lot of people struggle. And it took me a while.
Was it just through experience and trial and error? Trial and error, and
There was a book, I don't know, 15 years ago called Emotional Intelligence.
Mhm.
That basically talked about this idea that you have intelligence, IQ, and EQ,
Mhm.
and that to manage people, it's all an EQ role. It's not an IQ role. And that was a big thing. And then I started to learn, I took some communication training classes, like how to deal with conflict, how to talk, how to media training. I started to do a lot of sales, and communication became very important. And in my role now, I think the biggest thing I do is I'm sort of chief storyteller. I tell stories because
Mhm.
trying the purpose of why you want to solve a problem with technology, or why should you stay at this company and go to somewhere else. Those are really important stories. And a lot of times people aren't particularly, we're very built to listen to stories and respond to stories, as opposed to listening to sort of rational discussion or even thinking about data. And so, which is odd thing to say, but I think that's the way we're built as people.
Sure. Yeah. So then where did you go from there? From your startups and
So I
learning?
went, I've kind of stayed in this sort of Massachusetts startup ecosystem, right? So I was in a startup, and then in 2005, the startup that I had met a guy through another person who had a startup that did analytics for healthcare, and he was a doctor and he was struggling. He had a small company, a couple of people, had bigger dreams. And I liked him because he built a company without any outside funding. He was a bootstrap guy, and he was smart, went to Harvard Medical School. And so I worked with him for 7 years, and we built that company up to about 50 people, and then we sold it. And it was really my first experience to data and analytics, and as a full-time job. And I had been a software person and software teams, and I had software person arrogance. And honestly, I took the job because my kids were like 5 and 7. And I wanted an easier job that I could like just do and like get home and play with the kids. And it turned out to be actually incredibly hard, right? Because things were breaking and we could never go fast enough. And so we had customers, with thousands of people using our analytics, and I was the chief operating officer. So people would call me when things would go wrong. And I didn't like that, like when things go wrong. And I would agree with them. They'd say, "This is wrong. You're a moron." And I go, "Yeah, we are a moron. That is wrong." And I did like a lot of initial managers did. I sought to blame people. So I fired a bunch of people, probably unjustly, because they weren't working smart. And then things were still going wrong. And the other part is we couldn't go fast enough for what our customers want. Like they wanted perfect insight in terms of dashboards, and we were integrating much of the data. They wanted to have a bunch of questions. Like I had people who did data engineering and data science and data visualization and business analysts all sort of working for me. And it really wasn't a great job because we were caught between the sort of Scylla and Charybdis, right? The Scylla of like errors and problems and incorrectness, and the Charybdis of like, you can't go fast enough, right? We're caught. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a very depressing position to be in, to be between something that you're going to fall off either way. And, it's frustrated my wife, because I was complaining a lot, and there just had to be something here. And it was like, I started to think about what we did as a factory. Right. I started to think about, okay, we're manufacturing insight. We're manufacturing data. What do people who've done manufacturing lines have done? So I went and read Deming and the Toyota production system and the machine that changed the world. And they had this very keen insight that floored me and said that 96% of the problems are in the system and not in the particular, not in the person. They're in, and who owns the whole system of work? Well, it's the leader. Right. And so what I realized is that almost all of those things were my fault and I had to fix them. They weren't the fact that someone just wasn't working hard enough or we hired the wrong person. And that also sucked because I realized that I'd probably fired some people I shouldn't have because I just didn't know how to manage them. So I started to, and this is like 2006, say, how do I adapt Toyota techniques? So we had a quality circle, and every week we'd sit around and say what went wrong. And we'd have a list, and then we'd have one thing that we could do. And given my software background, it was do something. And it was I was a believer in automation, like write some code to do it. Sometimes it was checklists that helped. Sometimes people forgot the checklist after a while, but like that, sort of. And then I realized I needed to have these phrases. So I started to use this term opportunity for improvement, like over and over and over again. And I had to get people to love their errors and realize, instead of shrinking when things go wrong and blame, to be able to be more open about problems and accepting. And so that took a while to break that out of the habit of like people wanting to hide their errors and the shame and blame, and also just even on the other side of it, trying to control people's heroism. Right, because a lot of people, you're in a customer success role. You want to help them, so you work all weekend. You give them what they want. That's great, but then you create a lot of what software engineers call technical debt. And so I guess I made some progress. We had a sustainable company, and then it realized that the founders of the company were kind of getting tired, so we sold it. And it was a good outcome for the founders. They didn't share it as much with our team as I wanted, but and then I wanted to start a company because I'd sort of been interested in entrepreneurship, and two people from that company joined me. And I think in the beginning, we realized that we weren't ever going to. We wanted to make a company that was sort of in line with our values. We wanted to make a company that we're big believers in, like selling things and being able to get value. So we've always worked. Never had any investors. We've always sort of grown with customer revenue. So we've still been, a profitable or mildly profitable company. And so we've grown over the years, and I think. That lesson of like trying to have a company that's sort of in line with your values. And the other part is like, if we're that data people all suffer the same thing that we did, right? Things are going wrong and breaking. They don't know why. They can't go fast enough for their customers. And like, I said in my talk, like we did a survey 2 years ago, and it was actually a really good survey. I think it was sort of 700 people responded. We had a survey organization do it, so it was statistically valid. And 96% of them said they wanted their job to come with a therapist because it was so stressful. And I was like, wow, it's not 100. So there's 4% are good. That's improvement. And so I don't want to get people down on data careers because it does, when I bring this up, the sort of failure and error rates and lack of frustration that a lot of people have, that you even see talking to people at the Dataversity conference. I think there's just a way out. And I think the way out is to focus on improving the system that you work in. It's focusing on work processes instead of the process of work. And so I think that's really what we've been preaching, and we have got some software to back it up to help make that happen. And so that's sort of been the mission, is like to relieve the suffering that I felt in 2005 that I see generally people have, and build a company in line with our values towards that mission. And we've been pretty consistent from that in the last 10 years. And I think, we've had some successes. We're not a 2,000 person company, so you can make your judgments on whether that's successful or not. But this is the mission I believe in, and I have good days and bad days. I'm about rather, some days at the last Dataversity event, I hear some, I was in and maybe this is too, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I was in a data products discussion. And you had those wrap sessions where some small special interest group discussions, and they were talking about data products, and everyone was saying data products is a what? Well, it's a what? A data product is a database full of stuff. A data product is a report. A data product is a virtualization thing. And I'm like, no, a data product is a how, not a what. It's a how you do things. It's a how you focus on iterative delivery to your customer. You want to work on a product that's always improving, not a project that's done. Mm-hmm. And then there's this book in software development by Mick Kirkstead called Project Product. that I think encapsulates that idea. And so I get a little depressed sometimes because like data people are very focused on the what and not the how, and the how is the real problem, and that there's a lot of opportunity for us to do more good what stuff if we just focus for a while on improving our how.
Well, I'm glad you attended that special interest group. I mean, that's the point of those discussions, right? To have those debates and get somebody's perspective to kind of start challenging the norm, right? Like, and
people, I brought it up, and people agreed, and like, you know, the reason I say that is I've just been talking about this same idea for 10 years, and like I'm like, why aren't, you know, I'm an engineer, I'm like, I figured it out. Why haven't you? And that's like one of the biggest problems for technical people. It's like what seems obvious to us isn't always obvious to other people, and it's crystal clear in my mind. But like you've got to communicate it and persuade and get people on the path, and that takes time and change. And that's in any career. If you're going to lead and not be an individual contributor, persuasion and discussion and empathy for people, I think is really important, because everyone's got a lot going on. And a lot of times people who come from a technical background tend to bonk. They tend to go like, oh, I just can't stand how stupid these people are. You know, they're like, why? This is obvious to me. Why are they doing all this dumb stuff? And then they quit or they change careers or something. And so I think that's a really important lesson for anyone who's in data is that we're kind of in the influence business, right? We're influencing people with data. And so, you know, we use technology to do that influence. And if you're going to try to influence people to not make intuitive decisions, and that's an influencing job.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, it just is not just in data. I think it's in any career, and it's just a human thing, right? I mean, I had to learn that lesson. I'm like, why doesn't anybody understand this very important thing that is so clear to me and so easy for me to understand? But then, you know, I have had the opposite experience, right? Somebody come to me and who like, Shannon, why aren't you understanding this? This is so clear to me. I'm like, but that's not the way my brain works. That's just, you know, but because, you know, we all have those strengths and can share those different things. So with, like you say, with empathy and patience, then we can share and build and, you know, and capitalize on those strengths from each of us, right?
Yeah. And like I appreciated you introduced yourself at the conference. I spaced your face. I was like, Shannon, I thought you were like, I don't know who you were. I was like, I had no idea who she was. I thought you were someone I worked with 10 years ago. And I was like, I like blanked, and you were very kind to me while my brain sort of snapped in and said, oh, okay, this is who you are. And so I appreciate that. But that's a good skill, you know, and like, I think it is. And that's, if you're going to, it's certainly a good skill. We need people who are focused 9 to 5 on technical things, right? However, even if you're going to do that, if you're going to do SQL work or data science work full-time, you work with others who are, a lot of things that you build together are collaborative efforts. And we all kind of work on this shared, technically complicated thing, right? And it's very rare that someone does something that makes an impact just by themselves. You're part of a team building something. And what is that you build? Well, it's a data warehouse with a set of reports. It's a well-governed data governance system. It's a software product. It's a car. And I think from my standpoint, this activity of having sort of socially awkward, technically skilled, high abstraction people work on a shared, technically complicated, complicated thing. There is a management set of ideas on how to do that. That's probably very different than, you know, managing a play or managing managing Dataversity, right? And I think they're principles of like, you know, run it with metrics and try to search for bottlenecks in the system, having searching for errors, looking for waste, honesty. I think are invariant of whether it's like you're making a car or making software or delivering insight to your customer. These principles kind of apply. And that's my sort of belief that those things work, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and data is not different. Data is just another shared, technically complicated thing like software manufacturing, and get over it and stop being a hero, or stop being a hero and working nights and weekends. Only do that once in a while, and stop being fearful and hiding under your process and not delivering value, or putting your head in the sand and saying, "This is my role. I don't know what else is there." Your job is to influence your customer, and you're part of a team, and your product that you deliver in any form is what matters in the world. And just because your piece works, if it's not used, it's not great. You haven't done a job. And so that's like that perspective of like focus on customer value and make them successful. That's really what it matters. And that's what I want more people to talk about, and less talk about data products, data mesh, data fabric, data lakehouse, technology du jour, the sort of techno fetishism that happens. I think is just not useful. Or, but so customers, that's where I am, and I think I'm right, but I don't think it's standard practice yet in data and analytics.
Visit dataversity.net and expand your knowledge with thousands of articles and blogs written by industry experts, plus free live and on-demand webinars covering the complete data management spectrum. While you're there, subscribe to the weekly newsletter so you'll never miss a beat.
So you've mentioned, I mean, these are a lot of great lessons, and this passion seems to come from some lessons that you've learned along the way and your own challenges. So what has been your biggest lesson so far in your career? What was it this, or was it something that influenced this, or
biggest lesson? Personal lesson is just I can work on it, and I got to continue to work on it. It's the sort of growth mindset. The cycles of your own failure and growth are kind of continual in your life. And if you try, you have a risk of failure, and and trying is all sorts of forms. Talking to someone you wouldn't want to talk to, trying a new thing, changing a job, starting a company, talking on a podcast. They're all like these things that we try and we learn, and we don't quite do it right. But at the end, we learn and grow. And so I think the sort of iterative growth mindset, I think, is a really powerful thing. And also the forgiveness of your own failures is a really good thing to do. And if you can do that, and be somewhat optimistic that things, even if, because I'm not sort of a pessimist, sort of trained optimism and trained growth mindset. And if I can keep doing that, things get better. Not always, not perfect, but they get better. And so you can keep that, and applies to relationships and a lot of different things. So just keep swinging the bat at things, and you're eventually going to hit something.
I love that.
I think that's what it is. So that's if any career lesson, it's you are going to have bosses that suck. You are going to have, I've had jobs where within 3 weeks, I realized I made a huge mistake. This is not good, and it's going to be bad. And I don't want to look for a job. I'm going to be here for a year. This isn't good. Or I've realized that I'm on a project and it's not working, and it's bad. And we need to back out of this. And I've had things that are great and that I love. Right. And we're going to have swings, and sometimes the bad things happen. You step back and realize, that was my fault. And what can I learn from it? And how do I, and I think any leadership, any position in anything means that you're the person who sort of goes in the cave and finds the bad thing and says, here's the bad thing, and this bad thing can happen, and maybe we shouldn't have done that, or maybe we have to do this to avoid it.
Very much so. Thank you. I love that. And thanks for sharing those challenges too. And so Chris, tell me, I mean, you've worked with data a lot throughout your career, really from the beginning of your career. So, what is your definition of data?
The definition of data. Um,
Mhm.
well, it's sort of quantitative measurements of stuff that happens in the world, right? I think that's the way I think of it. It's sort of like the reflection in Plato and Meno's cave, right? It's the reflection of what happened. It's not reality; it's a reflection of reality, right? And so, in that sense, I think data is a way to perceive the world that is can be accurate and can be inaccurate. But it is a way to help you. It is a tool to help you make better decisions about your life and your business or your activity. And so, but it's not the only tool. And so, what I found is that um, most people, and I've worked mostly in sort of business and government contexts, I haven't worked in others, but people look at data in many different ways as part of that. But sometimes they look at data as a thing to justify their intuitions. I already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find in the data what
Okay.
it is. I think other people look at the data more directly and say, okay, it disconfirms, and then they change their mind. Um,
Mhm.
but it's part of the process of decision and change, and it's only part of it because there's intuition, there's experience, there's
Mhm.
peer pressure, there's theories of the world, and like human decision making is sort of super flexible in that way.
Right.
So data is part of it, but it can play a really strong part in how people make decisions. And I think likewise, I think it also has the same as I've seen the data career in the sort of 18 years that I've been in it it's really gone from, in a lot of ways, as furniture in organizations. It's like, oh, show me the data. Okay. It's like I'm seeing a chair. It's like, okay, we got to have data, to actually having power and the sort of Moneyball idea. That's a really interesting change. Data as power, and companies that have gotten very big and influential because of their data that they have, specifically the big consumer internet companies. And so that's also another definition of data is data has power,
Mm.
that I think can cut both ways. And so we have to sort of put our moral lens on it as well, and treat it as something that can be misused, as well as used for good things.
Ugh, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's so very true. So, and as we, the this data becomes more mainstream, or more companies are focusing on it, do you see the importance of data management and the number of jobs working with data increasing or decreasing in the next 10 years, and why?
I guess I see that everyone who has a part of the company should be using data in some way, right? Whether you're working in a consumer business and you've got your retail store, whether you're a teacher, part of your work should be, maybe not every day, but part of your work should involve reflecting on what the data is telling you, and how that can do it. And so there are always going to be groups of people who are in charge of the cult of data, and integrating it, explaining it, improving upon it, sharing it. And so I think those jobs are really important, right? And so I think they are not going to decrease. And I do think, even though teams are woefully inefficient, I think, and there's a huge opportunity for teams to get 10 times more efficient. I think those jobs are going to increase. And I think there's a superpower that I've found, is that if people who can talk, can think, and who can, I guess I think of it as code, but really do data,
Mm.
code, think, and talk. Like that's, if you can do those three things, you are, because a lot of people who can talk, but they can't think.
Yeah.
Some people can think
Yeah.
and they can't talk and can't code. Some people can code and they can't. So like you got all three. You're like the superpower, and like you're
Love
set.
it.
um,
Well, that's a really nice segue into my next question, Chris, because if people are looking to get into careers in data, and there's so many different aspects of it. So
Yeah.
wherever you want to focus, is what advice would you give to people looking into it? Would you like say hone all those 3 skills, or what advice would you give?
Yeah. That's interesting. So there's a story. So yeah, my daughter has her boyfriend, and her boyfriend just started teaching at a college, and he's kind of he's teaching sort of data science, computer science, and he has a sort of a data analytics class for business majors. And he gave his first test, and he goes, "Yeah, I got scores from 20 to 100." And like, what do I do with that? And I was not at all surprised, because people who are in non-technical fields who score 100, and it's like it's just super easy for them. They're like, they don't even know why. They look at it and it makes sense for them. And like, if that's part of your makeup, that's a good thing. It just sort of makes sense to you, and you can use that. And a lot of people in data come into that where they're the ones who are just interested in it. They get the data in the spreadsheet and they look at it. They understand the data. They start doing it on weekends, and they find that that's a skill, and you should. Not everyone has it, and it's not that you're. In some ways, it makes you like, we all have different skills, right? But it's sort of a unique skill that you can hang your hat on and go with. And so, if you can couple that with sort of influence skills and certainly technical skills, because there's a lot. Like if you go from sort of Excel hacking to Tableau to trying to do data management in the database to data governance, those are all really good things. And I think those are important. There are some anti-patterns in careers in data about people who get really focused and know their company data, and then just get all bitter because no one's listening to them. But like, I think it's a great career. I find there's a lot more women than men, and like, there's just way too many men in software. So and I've been personally trying to recruit more women for years, and it's like impossible, because only 20% of the computer science graduates are women at any time. And so it's a lot more female friendly. It's a lot more mix of this, talking to people and doing technical things. And if you can sort of have a business sense and couple that with technical skills and understanding data, that's also really a superpower. Like, if that's really good, because it's in some ways, looking at a business through its data is sort of an X-ray. It's kind of an X-ray vision, right? And like, one of our friends is a teacher, and she wanted me to come talk about business to third graders. And I said, go into a store and put your X-ray glasses on, try to figure out where they're making all their money. And like, those bits of candy right by the cash register that cost $1, that's where they're making their money, because it really cost them 3 cents. Right. Why are some things higher and lower? Why are some things on the end and not? Where do people really, like, why? Well, restaurants make all their monies off of drinks, not the food. Like, you got to look for where the margin is generated. And it's like I think data is like that. It's kind of like it gives you a sort of an X-ray into a truth about an organization, and that's a very important thing for organizations to have. So there'll always need people to do that, because most people kind of don't want to do that. The results. And if you can help, you can really help an organization by being part of a team that is able to give that company X-ray vision and influence the organization to the right way.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Well, Chris, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, if people wanted to learn more about Datakitchen, where would they go?
Simple, datakitchen.io. And data is just the one word, data. Just Google Datakitchen. And we have, if you're interested in some of these ideas of analytic agility, data ops, lean, we have actually 2 books that are free for download on data ops, several hundred pages. We've had over 30,000 people download them. We have a training program, a free certification program in data ops that we've had over 3,000 people take. If you enjoy listening to me more in a tape format. We have a manifesto of 18 points that you can look at and sign. So we have a lot of content that helps, because I think fairly early to this idea. So we had to create a lot of ideas. And now there's a lot more companies talking about testing and observability and agility and data and analytics, which is great. But one of the challenges of being early is that we had to, when I talked about these ideas at the first Dataversity conference, no one knew what I was talking about. It'd be like some guy 7-8 years ago, like, what? What do you do? What are you talking about? So it's people know a little bit more now, so which is great.
They do. Yeah, indeed. And I have to ask, Chris, you are, in addition to being CEO, you're head chef. So does everybody at the company have these fun names, fun titles?
No, not really. I like it because we, like good data people, we made a spreadsheet of company names. And like good business people, we had a couple of ones that didn't work, that were too technical or like, and then so we finally settled on Kitchen because it's fun, and also because it's, if you've eaten at a good restaurant, the work that a team of people does in a kitchen is really important, right? And it's a lot like a data team, right? Because you want to consistently put out the dishes on your menu with high quality, right? And you want to maintain lots of variations of them because somebody's going to be a vegetarian or not like cheese on their on their dinner, right? But then you also have to create new stuff because you have to create new menu items. So consistency, low errors, but you have to be able to change things rapidly or create new things. And that metaphor, I think, really applies to data and analytic teams. You have to put out high quality results, but you have to respond to what customers request and create very rapidly so you can improve your learning. And so I think the kitchen's a good metaphor, the team. And so I think it's a good name in that way. And it's people, and it's fun. It's less boring than like we had some very technical sounding names, and they were like, who wants another technical nerd sounding company, so.
I love it. It's a great metaphor. And so datakitchen.io, check it out. Well, Chris, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to join with us today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. And to all of our listeners out there, if you'd like to keep up to date in the latest podcasts and in the latest in data management education, we go to dataversity.net/subscribe. Until next time, stay curious, everyone. Thank you for listening to Dataversity Talks, a podcast brought to you by Dataversity. Subscribe to our newsletter for podcast updates and information about our free educational webinars at dataversity.net/subscribe.